All right, so the loan payment formula for fixed installment loans looks like this. So the regular payment amount, how much you're going to pay each month, the PMT, required to repay a loan of P dollars. So how much you borrowed, that's the principal, and then it's going to be multiplied, having it's going to be paid n times per year. So most of the time you're going to pay every month, so that's 12 times per year over 2 years. And again, you can have 30-year loan, a 15-year loan, or whatever you decide to get. And your rate, don't forget, we have to have that as a decimal. And so that's the key there. And so this is the formula. It's going to be P times R over N divided by the quantity 1 minus 1 plus R over N raised to the power a negative NT. Now, depending on your calculator, sometimes you'll need to put that NT in parentheses. Sometimes you won't, depending on which calculator you have. All right, so let's look at an example here. Suppose we have a $315,000 mortgage financed with a 30-year fixed rate at 4.5%. The bank requires a 10% down payment, so that's a key. We have to have that much down, and 2 points at the time of closing. Okay. The total interest paid over 30 years was approximately $233,460. So that's for a 30-year loan. Now, for one, what is asking is use the loan payment formula, which we just looked at, for installment loan to find the monthly payment if the time of the mortgage is reduced to 15 years. So instead of 30 years, we're going to use 15 years. And then we're going to round it to the nearest dollar. And so we're going to use an Excel table to do that, as well as we're going to type it into the TI-84 and see how we can do it that way. So first one, let's write our equation down and formula what we need to do. Well, if we have to take 10% down, that means we're going to have to take 315,000 times 0.1. And so that's going to give us 31,500. That's going to be our down payment. Okay. Now, from that, that means if we take 315,000 minus our 31,500, that's going to give us how much our loan's going to be. And if we subtract that, that's going to be 283,500. And so that's going to be our loan. Okay. So now we know how much we're borrowing. Now what we have to do is we have to do it for 15 years at 4.5%. So now we have our payment is going to be equal to, well, our amount for a loan, 283,500 times 0.045 divided by our 12 divided by, and then we had 1 minus 1 plus 0.045 over 12 raised to the power a negative 12 times. Now we're only doing 15 years, and that would be our value there. All right, so now what we have to do is we have to go type all that in our calculator. So let's go there. And so our numerator was 283,500 times 0.045 divided by 12. And then we were dividing that by, then we had 1 minus, and then we had 1 plus 0.045 divided by 12. And then that was raised to the power. Now here, mine, I don't have to put parentheses. And so I have a negative 12 times 15. And I just have to remember to arrow down and put my in parenthesis. And it says I have $2,168.76. So that's going to be how much my loan is. So writing that out, my payment is going to be $2,168.76. But they want us to round to the nearest dollar, so that's going to be about 21.69. So that's how much my monthly payment's going to be. All right, so now how we do that into Excel? All right, well, Excel is going to be done this way. We have to use a payment. And so we're going to use the payment formula. The payment formula is going to be basically we have our annual interest rate divided by 12 times 100. So that's going to do the, if we remember, we had the 12, the 0.045 divided by 12. Well, this time what we're going to do is for our annual rate, we're going to type in the actual number here. So that's going to be 4.5. And so we have to divide it by 100 here to get it to 0.045, and I have to divide it by 12 to get the rest of the formula. And then we need to have how much we made our loan for. So that was 283,500. And so that, if we look on our formula here, that is going to be this formula here. So our payment is going to be the rate, the number of times per year. the present value and the future value and all that. So now we have that. But because we're taking a loan, I'm going to make this a negative. And we're doing it for how many years? Oops. Hit the wrong button. All right. Put our negative back in there. No. Uh, Put our negative. Oops, not. And then enter. All right, there we go. And number of years, we said we are doing for 15 years. Okay. All right. So back to our payment. Our rate, that was going to be the 4.5 divided by 12 times 100. So we're dividing it by 100 to get it to 0.045, dividing by 12 to get the monthly. The B4 times 12, well, B4 is the number of years times 12 months per year, so that'll give us that number. And then our B2, that's going to be our amount of loan, how much we have to pay. And so that's what that is. And again, once we hit enter, we get roughly the same thing we had before. $2,168.76. Now we have to just know we have to round that automatically to the 2169, and that's how we're going to use our calculation. All right, so now let's go to part B. It says now find the total interest paid over 15 years. All right, well, so for 2, we're going to say, well, we're going to pay $2,169 times every month times 15 years. And we borrowed how much? Well, we borrowed 283,500. Now, if we do that, that should tell us how much we're going to have to pay in interest, because this is going to be the total amount we paid. This is how much we have to pay for principal. So the difference should be our interest. All right, so that was 2169 times 12 times 15 minus 283,500. And so that means we have 106,000. Oops, we hit the wrong button here. I was like, that's supposed to be a 9. I must hit the wrong value. 9. So that's 106,920. Okay. So going back over here, that is 106,920. So that's how much interest we paid over those 15 years. Now it says how much interest was saved by reducing the mortgage from 30 years to 15 years. Well, they said in 30 years, we're going to pay 233,460. So that means if we take 233,460 minus 106,920, that's how much we're going to save. And so I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to say subtract off that 233,460, and I know it's going to give me a negative number, but I'm just going to use the positive value. So 126,540. So that's how much we saved. 126,540 saved in the 15 years that we reduced it by. So we started with 30 years, we reduced it by 15 years to a 15-year loan, and so we saved 126,540. All right, so let's stop there and we'll come back for more in a little bit.